Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tech Tip Talk. I'm Sarah Walworth.
I'm Christina McGrath, and we are Knitting Tech Editors.
So we come together once a month here to interview and talk to other knitting professionals in our industry about tech editing and knitting pattern design and answer your questions. We're so excited.
This month, we're being joined by Erin Clayton, who is a knitwear designer and a graphic designer who works with folks in our community in productivity in their businesses and in readability in their patterns through her courses, through coaching, and through branding design. She is all about helping clients reach their goals in really stressless ways, and we're really excited to get her take on things. So let's bring her in.
All right, here we go. Come on in, Erin. And let me get you center stage. Yay!
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so happy to talk to you.
All right, we decided to have you on it's like we said before, it's a little bit out of our usual guest. You're not a tech editor. You are a knitwear designer and a graphic designer.
Yes.
Which is really specialized and super important in our industry. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get started working in the knitting industry?
So, as you said, my background before I joined the knitting industry is in graphic design, and I've been a graphic designer for over 20 years. And I feel like I've been a designer of some sort my entire life. It just is so much a part of me and my personality and everything that I do, that when I only began to knit like 6 years ago. And a couple of years in, I was getting the itch to create. And because knitting was something that I really took to so quickly and I loved so much, that I knew I wanted to combine my love of designing with my love of knitting. And so I started to create the patterns that I couldn't find, because it was very important to me that they were wearable and they fit in with what I was doing. So I just, took the leap and became a knitwear designer.
So, what was the leap between graphic design and knitting design though? Like how did that happen?
Design, I mean, for me, design is design. So I'm always looking at things around me and getting inspiration and always thinking about how I can create something from nothing or something from the raw ingredients. And that is just such a thrill to me. And it's something I just can't seem to stop doing. So the knitwear design just came naturally. And the funny thing is that between the other things that I was good at and had background in, it all kind of came together. The design, with my graphic design background, I worked in publications. I was really passionate about page layout, so that part was easy. I have a background in photography as well. I've been a wedding photographer. At my previous corporate job, I did photography for them as well. So I felt like all of these things just came together and made it so that this was just the perfect transition to become a knitwear designer.
So what, as a designer, when you started designing knitting patterns, what did you find missing in that led you to offer the services that you do, and what do you offer?
So I found that there were so many absolutely beautiful designs that were created, but I felt that some of the designers did not have the same background that I did, and therefore didn't have the knowledge to create pattern layout that was easy to follow.
Yeah.
They would work really hard on their designs and they would work really hard on their directions, but they wouldn't know that extra little bit of information that would make it very readable and would make it just easy to follow. It's important to me to craft an experience through formatting and spacing and just the way everything's laid out so that it makes it much easier for the knitter to enjoy the pattern. And so I felt like that part was missing. And if I'm honest, that's probably some of why I started to design, is because I was struggling with some of the things that I was reading. I wanted to create these beautiful patterns, but I was struggling with the patterns themselves. So I thought this is something that's needed in our industry. And given the fact that I'm both a knitwear designer and a graphic designer, it was something that was perfect for me to help people with. And I love explaining things and I love getting down to the why of things. So it all just came together and I started to offer these services.
So this makes me super excited because we've talked at length in other episodes about how you have to arrange your information in your patterns so people
Yes.
understand and don't get
Yes.
confused.
Yes.
And, patterns have come a long way. They're not a paragraph anymore with
Yes.
maybe a little picture. It's
Yes.
there are pages and pages of information, and you're going from, one chart to the written instructions to back to abbreviations table and I love how you say it's a matter of experience and giving
Yes.
a good experience that isn't uncomfortable for the maker. So let's talk a little bit about why. So you talked about the why. You explained the why. Why is pattern formatting and layout important, and how do they aid in accessibility? So we talked with another guest about accessibility, but I'd like to hear from your perspective related to just maybe not someone who's visually disabled, but in other forms of accessibility.
Absolutely. So I have my entire life struggled with big, like if there's unformatted text, like a huge paragraph, my brain just has a hard time with it. So
A wall of text.
yes, wall of text, and you start to read through it and you get lost and you're like, wait, did I read this already? And so I feel like because of that, I really started to think about what is it that you can do when you're creating these patterns that is going to help with that. So I feel like we definitely as an industry have worked hard on our accessibility for low vision, which I think is absolutely fantastic. But then there's other people who have maybe other issues, and need this good experience as well. And so in my opinion, by the way that you lay it out, with bolding and formatting and spacing and where you place your images and how you visually lead from one space to a next, you can do that through pattern layout. And the interesting thing is when you do it right, the knitter doesn't actually know that they're being led through. But it just makes it a great experience. And then they come back and they want to buy your pattern again because they know that they enjoyed it. They didn't stress out. They knew what they needed to do. And it was very clear. And so I think with good pattern layout, you're able to achieve all of these wonderful things that then elevate your pattern, which, you have a beautiful design. But if you have a beautiful layout, and not only beautiful, but useful, it's really going to make it that much better.
Well, we say that a lot about style in general and a pattern. If something is poorly done or wrong, it glares out at you. It confuses the knitter. It makes them have a terrible experience, and it causes issues with your pattern. But when it's done well and correctly, it's invisible. You don't notice it.
Absolutely.
It makes the knitter's experience with your pattern like wonderful. So it's that's like what you're saying, like it's not gonna no one's gonna anyway. Yeah.
So is it just spacing, or is it just font size, or is it just like making sure your paragraphs aren't a wall of text? I mean, when we're talking about pattern formatting and layout, what are we actually like? How would you define that as a good pattern layout?
Well, and I think it's a lot of those things together. I have a class that's called Improve Your Pattern Layout, and I talk about I'm not going to remember them right now, but there's 5 real keys that I think about, and a couple of them are bolding, pattern, the spacing in the patterns. That's really actually number 1 to me. Like
margins.
Yeah. 2 columns. It's very important that you have 2 columns versus 1 column of text across the page, because if you look at newspapers and you look at publications like that, if they have a wide page, they're usually broken down at least into 2 columns. And if it's a super wide page like a newspaper, it's broken into more. But for our whole 8.5 by 11 kind of layout in the US, they breaking it into 2 columns just makes it easier to read, and there's science in that. So, thinking about some of these things, and where you place your photos and like all of these things together, they really make for a better experience. They just make it a cohesive piece, so that you know exactly what you're looking at, you know why you're looking at it, and you don't need to be confused or to go, wait, where am I supposed to go from here? Because as a designer, you have led the person through it so that they know what comes next.
So headers are important probably too,
Yes.
right? Like headings. I know we talk about this in our book that we're writing.
I'm so excited.
That you have to like give like mile
Orient
markers.
your knitter.
Say it again.
Orient your knitter.
Yes.
Orient
Absolutely.
the knitter. So
Yeah.
like tell them where they're going, where they've been,
Yes.
how to find things. So hello everyone in the comments and joining us live. We're so happy that you are here. Please feel free to ask a question in the comments. And Michelle says, I really get a lot of good tips from Erin's pattern layout class. So there you have a thumbs up.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
And we put into the comments the link to the class that she mentioned. And please ask questions. We love that you guys are here live.
So speaking of the formatting and the layout, what are the pattern formatting issues you find that designers most often make?
So I was thinking about this, and I think that it's really, the first thing that I see is that there's not a lot of bolding. There might be the bolding of like, say, your rows and that, but then there'll be this long strip of text with no bolding in the middle. And I feel like if you're able to bold your like your pattern repeat or something, so that the knitter can then ground themselves to something. They go, okay, like I just need to do this part before the bolded section, then I could do the bolded section, and then I could do the other part afterwards. Thinking about stuff like that. And then the other thing is with the spacing, and I mean spacing between lines. There's ways that you can refine your spacing so that it just up levels everything. And I feel that those two things are some of the things that I notice that if people were to adjust those, it would make a big difference.
Wow. So the bolding, it kind of like breaks it into steps and makes it more visually easy to follow.
Yes.
Instead of it just being.
Yeah, because you would look away from your directions as you're working
can't
on
find
it.
your place.
Exactly. It gives you a place to ground yourself to be able to go, oh, okay, I don't need to worry about that part yet because I'm still working on the part before it. Or if I'm doing my repeat, then I just need to focus on the bolded part. Right. And I feel like that just makes a big difference for making it easier for knitters to work on your patterns.
You mean I might not have to use my sticky notes? Like putting the highlight tape after every line.
Yeah.
Do you find that font size and font type is an issue that you run into? Like people choosing a font that's not as readable? Like what's readability in font size and type?
So I like in a font, when you're doing kind of your body copy, your directions, I like to go about 12 or 13. And it really depends on the font itself, whether you go one way or the other. It's a visual kind of thing, but I'm finding that's a really good place to start. And sans serif tends to be easier to read.
Renee had said the same thing, that a sans serif font is
yes.
the way. Yeah.
Right. And so this brings up this is a question that we have in the comments right now, because we did talk to Renee Van Hoy about visual accessibility for low vision makers. And she asks, what advice would you offer as tech editors to create a balance between what's advised here and the accessibility standards previously presented? Seems like two different files, maybe?
I would definitely do that. Like, in my opinion, what I would do is to create, I think it would be easier to create this file first, right? And then to be able to strip out the things you don't need, because I know with what Renee says that you want to make the font a lot bigger. You don't want a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about.
One column.
Exactly. So by, as a graphic designer and someone working in some of these programs, I would create the one that I'm talking about. And then I would go in and I would just strip everything out and make it the one column and make it bigger. And I feel like once everything is finalized, that would be easier than trying to create the two at once.
Yeah,
I agree. And because I think it is probably the best choice to make two separate files and not have your pattern only be in accessible format.
Yeah.
Because I think that if an accessible format isn't what you need, then it might be more frustrating to use the pattern.
Yeah.
So you can have your pretty pattern, your style and everything in your two columns in your pattern, and then create another file that's accessible that has the one column, the large font, and still keep the bolding and the font type and everything else that makes your pattern so great in the first place, and keep all of that in the accessible copy. I mean, I think that probably is the best thing to do, Ruth.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is because we're delivering these patterns digitally, I think there's a lot of options to have multiple file downloads. I know some designers are even doing like size breaks, like so that the pattern isn't overwhelming. If they have 19 sizes, they'll do size groups. So yeah, I think more than one file is definitely a way to go. Catherine says, I have two files for my patterns. The second one is done near the end. My accessible patterns go from 6 pages to 25 pages. So yeah,
that's another thing with the larger font type, you're going to have more pages.
Yeah. And then that also gives your maker the agency to download what they need and only use what they need. And it meets all the needs then. So definitely. I have a question for you, Erin. What advice would you give to a designer just starting out? Like if they're just beginning this process of figuring out how they want their patterns to look?
I would suggest that you just actually, before I started to offer these services and I started to think about how I wanted to lay out my pattern, I thought about the patterns that I really like to knit and what the aspects of those patterns were that made it a better experience for myself. And then I took that information to work into my own design layout. So I would say, the first thing would be just to really look at what you like and what you find to be easy. And also you can take inspiration from publications that you like, magazines or, different things that you really like. What is it? Thinking really about what is it that I like? What is it that makes this an enjoyable experience? And how can I use this information?
With a caveat, like if you love pink cursive font, that may not work. Like you have
no, I get that.
You've got to kind of mediate your preferences to something that is appealing to others too.
So, but the thing is that you can take bits of that information. If you like a pink cursive font, you could put some sort of a readable cursive font on your front cover, and then maybe you could take the pink and put it into a design. So like you can take aspects of things, but you're definitely gonna want to look at the readability of it. But I just think it's always interesting to get that information and find out what it is that you as a person and a designer and a knitter yourself find very useful.
Love it.
So we've talked about neurodivergence on our show before and how that relates to knitting patterns and how people experience knitting patterns. And I know I've heard that you have personal experience with ADHD, and we were wondering, how did you turn those experiences into a strength that has now enabled you to help people with their patterns?
I'm so excited about this question.
So I only found out this fall that I have ADHD, and I found out from a friend of mine going for a diagnosis and me trying to be a good friend and research to support her, only to realize that this explained absolutely everything in my entire life and the way my brain works. And
Wow.
honestly, the reason that I break things down the way that I do. And so for me, it's really hard to read that block of text. Directions have always been really hard. And I think because of that, I give a lot of thought to making the directions as clear as possible, as easy as possible. And I also think about the order in which is best to do things. So I'm able to do with my, my layout class to explain the why behind things, because I've thought about absolutely everything and why it works and why it's important. And then in my coaching that I offer, I really break down productivity and like systems and routines and how to think about what you need to get done and what's the best order in which to do it. And so I feel like something that is often, it's definitely not, an easy thing having ADHD, but I think that there's parts of it that have helped me to really think about all of these things and then help other people. And the interesting thing is there's a lot of neurodivergence. Like a lot of people who are creative and entrepreneurs also have some neurodivergence. So I feel like there's a lot of people who benefit from this.
So you're having to cope with a non-ADHD world with the way your brain is wired. It has allowed you to have kind of these little superpowers to see into these processes, and the way of looking at things to break things down is it's allowed you to have this strength. It's really admirable.
Yeah, it's like you've developed tools to create order.
Yes.
And that only helps in a knitting pattern. I mean,
Absolutely. And it's funny because I feel like that's probably why I became a graphic designer and why I was so passionate about page layout and how everything fit together, and really thinking about like, okay, if I bold this, it makes it easier, because like it made it easier for me. And then other people, like as I was working and, in publications like magazines and books and stuff like that, they would say, oh yeah, that was a great way to format that. And so I didn't know why, but that was why I was doing that. And so it helps other people now too.
I wonder if it allows you to see those nuances that maybe some of us aren't bothered by.
yeah.
In other words, it wouldn't matter to us if things were in a different order, or if there was a wall of text, or spacing was slightly off, or the fonts were weird. We'd be like, we can handle it. It's no big deal. But for you, it's like glaring.
Yeah, it totally is glaring. It really sticks out to me. And the positive thing is that I find that, I see them and I fix them. And then other people who even, might not have the same issues I do find it easier. So they enjoy it as well, even though they didn't struggle with that wall of text to begin with.
Yep.
I love it. So it becomes a skill to be able to notice things, but then you know how to fix it.
Yes. Because I need to know how to fix it. That's something that's very important to me. I'm an organizer. I really like to understand the why behind things, and in every aspect of my life. And so it's nice to be able to like help other people with this as well.
That's awesome. So remember, everybody who's watching us live, if you have any questions for Erin that are specific to the things that we're talking about, please toss them into the comments, because we'd love to hear what you guys have to say too. So what are you excited about now? Like, what is getting you going? What like gets you out of bed in the morning and gets you moving in your work?
So I actually recently revamped my branding package, and I thought a lot about this kind of stuff we were talking about, and I added, not only am I like designing for people, but I'm then consulting with them to help to make like, where do you put everything? So you do your branding, right? You do your branding, you have all these pieces.
But then you're not just leaving them there.
Exactly, because you
Yeah.
don't know what to do with them, or you put them on your website and it looks a little too big, but you don't know, is it right? What should I do to make it, different? And so I have this consulting service afterwards where you have 30 days of support, where as you're putting things in all the different places on your pattern, on your website, wherever else you need to, we can talk back and forth about, like, is this the right one? Should I be using my main logo? Should I be using my alternate logo? Is there enough white space? Is this the right color in my branding colors that I should use? Or is there a different one that would look better? And I feel like that's something that people really need. So I'm super excited about that and being
Well,
able to
even just
work.
knowing how many like tentacles your branding has, right? Like how many places it goes and things it can do. I mean, it's a lot.
It really is. And I feel like we often don't know. You had mentioned a little while ago how, because of my neurodivergence and my brain and the way things work, I can see things that other people can't. And I'm able to see, with my graphic design background, like, does that need a little more white space? Would it look better if it was a little smaller or a little bigger? Is the balance right? And so I'm excited to be able to work with people to take them, beyond the designing this branding package that they absolutely love and resonates with them and really is uniquely theirs, and putting it in all the places so that we can really make the most of it.
Yeah.
So you're making beauty.
I
It's like
am.
beautifying the beauty in the creative sphere. I love it. So how important is branding to a design business? I mean, can someone do something that's just like really simple on their own, or do you feel like they have to hire someone to do a good job?
Well, I think that there's different answers to that. I think that when you're first starting out, you can definitely just do something simple, get yourself started, figure out who you are and what you stand for, and everything that comes together to make you who you are. And when you're at that point, I really do think it's important that you hire someone, because they're going to be able to see things and know things that you don't know. Because as a designer or a tech editor or a business owner, you're good at the things you're good at. And, graphic designers, we have this background and we know how things fit together. We know the pieces you're going to need. There's so much more that we can add, and the experience we have to be able to create something that's exactly what you need. Because if you don't know you need it, then you're going to run into a wall and then have to like struggle and scamper to get that thing that you didn't even know you needed.
Well, and getting yourself out there in branding your business, like, it's so easy if you're not sure what to look for, or you're not sure all the things that need to be done, to have the inconsistencies.
Yes.
Like, hi, my most unfavorite thing, right? Like, I mean, and that's gonna be a detriment. I mean, when you have inconsistencies in your branding and in what you're putting out, it's a detriment to your business.
And I was thinking the other day about how just having that cohesive face, people know you. They, when they see you in all the different places, they know exactly who you are, what you look like, what your look is, all of that. But you also take away this decision making, right? Because you've made the decisions. So if you need a color, you have your color, your color palette. You don't need to make that decision. You just pick one of them. You need a font, your font. You need a logo. You have several different ones that are going to fit different sizes and different needs, and it's all taken care of. And then you can work in your business and know that these decisions are made and that you have that cohesive look.
So it takes the stress out of trying to get the thing that you need at a certain time when maybe you don't have it yet.
Yep.
So the brand, how does a brand operate in relation to small business? Like, what is its function, and how does like logo and all that fit into it? I mean, I'm sure we can go and we can get your branding package and do all that, but I'd love to hear how this applies to like our creative business. Brand seems like it would be super important. How does it operate? What's its function?
Well, I really feel like it's that face. It tells people what to expect from you. Like when they see you, they know just by looking at your colors, your general feel. Like, are you whimsical? Are you, you know, clean and modern? All of that is brought forward, you know, through your brand. So do you have very bright colors in your brand? Is that something that they're going to then expect from your designs and from your just general content? Like, are you playful? Are you more minimalistic and earthy and all of that? These are all things that you know, kind of bring forward as your, you know, your first impression to people. And then not only is it a first impression, but then, you know, it's that consistency that follows up with it as well, that they know what to expect.
I think that's really exciting because then I think it's something, and when you're starting a business, you're not really thinking about maybe so much. You want to like just get the thing going. But then it means that you have to kind of define who you are in your, almost like in your clothes of what you're wearing in front of people, how people view you, right?
Yes. And oftentimes you don't know the answers to these until you've been doing this a little while.
Right.
So a lot of people I work with have been doing this, you know, maybe about a year, maybe a little bit longer, where they've started to do the work, they started to show up, they've started to figure out who they are as a business owner and as a designer or a tech editor or whatever. And now they're like, okay, I kind of have an idea. And now I want to create this cohesive kind of like just front for my business so that people know what to expect. And I, you know, feel confident in what I'm offering to people, that it's all put together.
And it's recognizable. So
Yes.
like when they see,
and representative of who you are and what you want to be doing. You know, you're not misleading anybody and you're not misrepresenting yourself, you know.
Or you don't have like the ubiquitous yarn ball.
Yeah.
That we all have, right? Like, how do we stay away from like choosing the yarn ball? Like I have in my brand, I have a yarn ball.
Well, and the thing is that we don't have to, you know, we can't, some people can choose to do that and we can do that in a creative way, but there's so much more than just a yarn ball. You know what I mean? Because you're not, that's not all that you are.
Needles, hook, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. There's one woman that I had designed a logo for that is in, she's in Florida and she's all about like really bright, colorful things. And so we brought in like some of the flowers that are near her and she really likes bright colors. So we made sure to bring that in as well. And so that was, and it says knits in her name. So why do you need to also put the yarn ball? You know what I mean? Like we went in a different direction. But it's still very clear, you know, who she is, what she stands for, what you're going to expect from her. And one of the things that I noticed that a lot of people who will start out and do something for themselves, which I, again, in the beginning, totally fine, is they won't make their name very clear, or they won't make it big enough. Like, let's face it, the most important thing is that someone sees what your brand name is and that it's big and that it's clear. Any sort of imagery backs it up. Because the name, like if they see that yarn ball, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that was a pretty yarn. Whose company was that? They want to see their name. Your name has to be front and center. And that's the most important thing.
So, changing the topic a little bit, what kind of things would you like to see change in our industry? Maybe related to what you do for a living or maybe not. Tell us what you think.
Well, so I think that, you know, one of the things that I am very passionate is about that page layout, because I feel like it's just going to help everyone. Like if you improve your pattern layout and it's more readable and you cover that kind of base, then you're going to sell more patterns as a designer. Tech editors are going to get more work from it, and knitters are just going to be happier, because, you know, that was the thing that when I started designing myself, I just like, I would buy patterns and I would open them and I would be disappointed. And there are times that I bought patterns and I said, I can't knit this. Nope. Like I just can't do it. There's a pattern that I bought that I've tried to knit 4 or 5 times. Every time I open it, I was like, I have no idea what to do here. Like, it's just not clear. And
Yeah.
so I think that if I, my wish for this industry is to have patterns that are easy to follow and that are enjoyable and don't stress out knitters.
Love it. We agree 100%.
I know you do.
So about that, like, what tools do you use in your work? In your crafting or in your work? What we always are so interested in, like, what softwares or what hardware tools or like anything that you use to like make your work easier for you.
So I use Adobe products. So I use Adobe Illustrator for my branding and for my page layout. And the reason I choose to actually use Adobe Illustrator as opposed to all of them is Adobe has, you can only buy it monthly. And so if you buy one, it's like less than if you buy, like, even if you buy two, you have to buy all of them. So I choose to keep everything in Adobe Illustrator. But I suggest that other designers who are looking to upgrade from, say, like just doing something in Google Docs or Word.
Canva.
Yes. Oh my gosh, don't get me started on Canva. They use something called Affinity. And there's Affinity Designer and Affinity, I forget the other one, but it's like an InDesign. So it's like a page layout thing.
Affinity Publisher, I think it
Yes.
is. It's like,
yes,
and it's like a one-time,
Yes.
you pay once for it instead of
Yeah,
monthly.
which is awesome. And it's like somewhere in the $50 range and you only have to pay once. And I consider it like Adobe Light. So when it comes to my pattern layout, I could not do what I do without, this program that's able to really allow me to customize and like go in and do the bolding and do the spacing and stuff like that. But I love that there are programs that are easier and that you can get into at a decent price that allow you to do the kind of things that I talk about. So definitely my Adobe product I love and I couldn't do without. And other than that, I mean, I started bullet journaling again. And I couldn't live without that. Yes. Yes.
So you like the pencil or pen on the physical paper?
I find that writing things helps me to remember things. And I use a combination of, if I have an appointment, it goes on my Google Calendar and sends me reminders and stuff like that. But if it's something that I'm trying to work out, then I like the paper. And I like the bullet journal because you're able to make it what you need it to be, because there's sometimes when I'm writing a lot and I'm doing a lot and I can make that work for me. And it's not like weeks go by and you haven't filled in your planner and then you go, I wasted the paper and all of that. Like I can make it exactly what I need it to be.
Right.
And I recently fell in love with a YouTuber. Her name is Rachel Steven, and she does a whole lot. She has ADHD as well, and she talks about how she uses a bullet journal and she really thinks about things and gets into the why. And so I've been using kind of her kind of system to really like take control of everything. I love productivity, like love, love, love. But I try and think about like how to also give rest and how it all works together. So yeah, my bullet journal, I would say, is very important to me.
That's very cool.
You're
so
talking
now I was doing bullet journaling for a long time too. And what ended up happening was with more things being in my Google Calendar, I had my bullet journal out all the time. I used it constantly, but I never would look at it. So I would do planning in it. I would write my lists. I would do all this stuff, but it would sit on the counter and I'd walk right by and I would never look at it during the day unless I went to put something in it.
Gotcha.
So I found like a to-do list app on my phone. So I've got like the calendar on the wall, the calendar on Google, and I've got my to-do list app and I take notes, but like I never was looking at the book. It's crazy. And I used a journal my whole life. And now like this phone totally ruined me. But I love that you love it because it is so cool how you can just make it exactly what you need. You don't have this other format that you have to fit yourself into, you can do it exactly how you want.
Yeah.
So why were you saying don't get me started on Canva?
Yeah. Okay. So our
Tell us all
audience,
about
Erin,
this.
please
So
get started on Canvas, says Natalie. And yes, what are the issues?
I
well,
know that my daughter and Sarah love Canva, and
I use Canva all
I'm
the
scared of
time.
it, so I don't do anything. But tell me.
so I guess what I would say is that Canva is really good for what Canva is good for, right? If you want something easy to be able to put up on social media, and you know it's a great starter. Like, they have all these beautiful layouts, you don't have to do much to it. Can definitely be very, very useful. But I think when it comes to pattern layout, I almost feel like it puts one hand behind your back, just like with some of these, like the website things, some website services where it's like they say that it's easy, but you can only do so much. So you feel like, I know what I want to do, but I can't do it because it won't let me do it. So I feel like with Canva, there's a lot of that where they think they know everything. And so they're telling you what you can do. And so when you're trying to like make changes, it actually messes up what Canva started, right?
Okay.
So it's definitely limiting with that. So I think Canva's great for what Canva's great for, but I do think that sometimes people will go and make tons of changes. And if you don't have like a graphic design background where you know about the white space and the shape and all of that, then you could get yourself in trouble. So I think that there's pros and cons. But I think that as a pattern layout, I don't think that Canva's the way to go.
For document layout, definitely. I've had
Yes.
some clients that do all their pattern layout in Canva, and then they send it to me, and for some reason, sometimes the links, like the hyperlinks, it's like the whole page is hyperlinked.
Yeah.
It's like not that one line, or there's like little bugs in their document layouts that it's real it's real weird. It gets weird, and I have to say that didn't work. Can you do this again?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that if you're doing like a flyer or something for, you know, for Instagram, that you want like a graphic or something like that, taking what they've done and like tweaking it to your colors and, you know, whatever image you're using, like, I think that's fantastic. I think it's a really great way to go, but I think that it definitely has limitations.
So if someone wants to learn, okay, so let's say and Natalie says this in the chat, a lot of designers use Canva. So it's like the default when you're getting started, you're in Canva, you want to do something free or low cost that has a template and you don't have to think about where to put things.
Yeah.
What if you're ready to graduate from that? So how like Affinity is affordable for someone, but like what if you don't know where to put things? How do you translate what is good, and how do you do it? How do you get there?
Well, I actually had done, I did a live version of the class, but it's available in the Improve Your Pattern Layout. And I go into the why of all of this so that whatever pattern layout software you're using, Natalie had just mentioned she likes InDesign. I explain the why. I explain all the different things you should do. I go down to talking about the size that your footers should be in comparison to your copy, what your borders, like, I talk about all of these things. I talk about grounding photos. I talk about, you know, your covers and fonts. Like, I talk about all of that. So I think that if you're looking for something to deep dive, that might be a really good resource. And I brought in the fact that I have the graphic design background, but I'm also, like, you know, a knitwear designer, and it works for crochet designers too, because actually it works for anyone who wants to lay out a document. You know what I mean? Like, it's talking about how it all comes together and the reasoning behind all of it. I love to explain the reasoning so that you're not left wondering why you're doing something, so you can grow from there.
So then that would like give you the basis then to go a little farther. In other words, once you know the why, it's like we do with when we're talking about anything related to technical things. Once you know the why, then you can actually like grow. You can go a little bit farther. You can take it deeper.
Absolutely.
Yeah, having the tools to know what to do in anything is going to be helpful. And what you're doing is like making these documents really usable
Yes.
and making them a better experience. And that's just so great.
So I think, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm basically taking my 20 years of graphic design experience, letting you inside my head and showing you why I do all the things I do and explaining them to you so that you can reason it out yourself.
So we did get a question, like, what's your best tip for leveling up your patterns and making them look professional? And we've already talked a lot about, hey, maybe you need to get some help, like take a little course or to go deeper to know the why. But do you have one tip?
I mean, I honestly think that if you start to work on that, spacing and bolding, like just that alone will really up level the readability. And then, I mean, also talking about like looking at, patterns and publications you like and really starting to think about that.
Starting to notice, why do I like this? What is
Exactly.
it about this? Do I like all the white space, or I like the lack of white space,
Yes.
or I like the way this font is placed, or
and why? Like not only the I liking it, but really trying to think into why is this working and how can I take this concept and make it work for myself?
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And
Like it's so much more than maybe just that one example.
Exactly.
But like understanding why it works and why it's better can help you in other ways too.
Yes.
And this applies to everything, I think, in our industry and in our design. Why?
Yeah.
Why does that appeal? Why does that feel great? Why does that fit well? Why does this stitch pattern work here? And then you can do it again. It's almost like you can replicate some fantastic aspect of it, and then it just makes everything better.
Well, and
Absolutely.
it becomes part of your brand, and it becomes part of what you put out and who you are,
Yeah.
when you know what you like and you know why you like it.
Yes. And it makes you feel more in control, right? Because then you know the why. You're not just making like decisions without the background of knowing why you are. It just makes you a stronger business owner.
Would you suggest that we journal this kind of why so we can come back to it? Or what, how do you keep track of, like, how do you keep track of all this?
I think that, keeping a list or journaling or something where even if you have like a little notebook or a section of your planner or whatever, where when you notice something, you just start writing them down. Or if you're going to do a Pinterest board, pin what you like. I love Pinterest for the reason of if you just pin, and then you start to see what the different things that are the same.
The themes.
Exactly. Then you could be like, oh, I guess I really like blah, blah. And then you can start to take information from that. But this is not like something that's going to happen overnight. This is something that you're going to have to just start noticing and figuring out how it's going to tie in to, what you're doing. But like, how exciting is that you're taking this information that's inside of you and figuring out what you want to do with it.
And then that actually builds you up as a person too, not just as a brand or as a business owner.
And how you can share who you are through your work. I mean, it's very exciting.
Yeah,
it is.
So Erin, oh, sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, now that we've talked about how amazing you are and all the amazing things that you can do, are you taking new clients and how can people find you?
I am absolutely taking new clients. I do, because I've been diving deep with the branding. I'm only taking usually one client a month. So you can find that on my website. Like there's erindesigns.com is where you can find everything. There's a work with me tab that has all the stuff we've been talking about. I also have my coaching program where I work one-on-one with somebody over 2 months, and we have 4 calls, 45-minute calls, and we really dive into like where you are in your business right now. And we talk about what's working and what's not, and figuring out what's next and how you can up level. And do you have systems? And where's your marketing plan? Where's your mailing list? Like, how is all of this working? And I just really am able to see how it all works together, like how everything fits together and what would be the next step for you. And so the clients that I've been working with have really been finding a lot of value in it. And I've been loving working with other people and being able to help other designers to like move forward.
That's awesome. And it feels like that might meet a super need for a lot of our audience. Like, I'm stuck. I kind of know where I need to go, but I'm not sure where I need to go. To have someone who has a little bit of insight into that. And you have a helper behind you. Rover.
I do. I have Rover, my golden oh, let's go that way. Yep.
So you have a business partner along for the ride. You work from home, so you're like us. You're a parent, and so a lot of us in this industry are people who work from home, who are trying to build little businesses, and I can see how this would be a huge help to many people who are just trying to figure out, where do I go with this? How do I make this better?
Absolutely. And I actually, when I started all of this and I started my knitwear design aspect of my business, I was working in a corporate job. And just before COVID hit, my company had, they had downsizing and I got laid off. And so I had to figure out how to adjust things and pivot as to what I was doing. So now the graphic design and the kind of strategy and coaching and stuff has taken more of a full-time, and then the knitwear design is definitely my side hustle. So with all of the stuff that I've learned over the last 3.5 years on that, I've been able to really kind of hone in on the systems and the routines and everything that's going to help that move forward. And so I'm able to help other people who are busy, who are moms, or who have a full-time job and just need to be able to really, refine the time that they're using so that they're really thinking about how to make the best of a small amount of time.
I love all this talk about order and systems and lists and planning and consistency. And I love it. I love all this stuff so much.
Me too.
Yes, it makes us super excited because we like to be the same way. I mean, you have to be if you're in a tech editing business. So one fun question. I see you wearing something gorgeous.
Thank you. This is my Gowla shawl, and this is a worsted weight triangle shawl, which I absolutely love wearing all winter long. I have a bunch of them in my repertoire of designs that I've done. You know what? That's such a hard question. What's my favorite yarn?
Favorite.
So right now, I just in February released a pattern that I used Shibui Haven and Shibui Silk Cloud together. It was absolutely amazing. It's probably one of my favorite combinations right now. But one of the things I really like to do, and I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'm thinking of writing a newsletter to my list about it, is someone said to me recently, oh, this yarn is so expensive. How can I buy that? And I was like, it's all about balance. So I have I designed a sweater, my first garment in January. I released it, and it is out of universal worsted, which is very reasonably priced.
And a good yarn.
And a wonderful yarn. It's 100% wool. It just has a million beautiful colors. But I feel as designers and knitters, if we can balance out, we have some of that totally indulgent, beautiful yarn, but you also have the workhorse yarns that are still equally beautiful, but more cost effective. It allows us to really, have that balance. But my favorite yarn changes from project to project.
Daily.
Daily, absolutely.
And Catherine says she's wearing her shawl right now.
She is. She loves, I love seeing it. It's actually in her yarn. She actually is a yarn dyer as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. We have one more question. You want to hit it, Christina?
Oh, okay. These are just for fun. These are so fun. So what is your favorite knitting or crochet notion?
Stitch markers.
Everybody
for the
Everybody loves the
stitch marker.
So I'll tell you why.
Okay. Let's have it.
Because of the way my brain works, and I'm often distracted. If I don't have stitch markers, especially in lace, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to be paying attention to what I'm doing. And then I'm going to realize I made a mistake like 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows down, and have to take that back. By having the stitch markers, it stops me 6, 10 stitches in to go, wait, I don't have the right amount of stitches. So I back it up. So I currently am designing something that's going to come out in May, and it has a 6-stitch repeat. So like, and it's a crescent shaped shawl. So it's going to have a bazillion stitch markers. But I wouldn't trade it for anything, because
it's the same as having that bold in the middle of the thing or breaking up the thing with spaces.
It's thinking
about on the needles. That's what stitch markers are doing.
Exactly. It's thinking about like the things that you as a designer, knitter, whatever, struggle with, and how can you, find something that's going to help you to do that in an easier, less stressful way.
It sounds like this is a theme for you.
Like I said, our intro, man, she's all about making these great changes and doing like improving your business and your patterns in a stressless way. I love it.
All right, but so is it like, is it the bulb ones? Yes. Or is it like the little circle ones?
I like the bulb ones because, especially with the lace, if it moves, because like if you have like a yarn over and it migrates over, you can take it off and move it. And I really am very big on sustainability, so I prefer to keep as much plastic out of my life as I can. Yep. So I like that they're metal as well. So yeah, I actually
yarn over thing with lace, and then they go under and then you end up with the wrong number at the yes.
But if you have each one marked off and you're able to count them, and you say like it's 6 stitches and you have 5 in one and 7 in the other, then you know that it moved over, as opposed to not knowing that because you're just going along.
Yes. And we've talked about this before, like stitch markers are like the most unused pattern notation. It just needs to be consistent, and designers need to use stitch markers more often because marking every pattern repeat, I personally don't find that optional.
It's one more great tool in your pattern to orient your knitter.
Yes,
it is.
And let them know where they are and what they need to do. And in the body, like in the instructions on the paper too, stitch markers are helpful. Please. You can write your instructions so much more clearly sometimes if you use stitch markers than if you're writing the instructions without them. I mean, it can really save time on the paper too.
Absolutely, because it grounds people. It's another place for them to ground themselves and say, like,
and lots of times, you don't have to write as many instructions.
You don't. It's right.
It makes it easier.
Yeah. I also like to, with the grounding thing in my pattern layout, is like I'll put boxes near the information. Like I'll put a box of like information, and I'll make sure that there's like a little box around it so that they know this is not part of the pattern, but this is something you need to know. And I try and put it near where you're going to need it, because otherwise you're just going to keep going and you're not going to know this bit of information, because you might have read pattern notes, but are you really going to go back now? You're going to have forgotten it.
Or you didn't print that page.
Exactly.
That happened to me this week. I was like, I'm working through a pattern that's very long, and it says, well, now you got to go refer to page 5. And I'm like, page 5? But that was, I got to go turn on my computer, print out page 5. I didn't know I was going to need page 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, putting stuff where you need it is definitely something we suggest. Like, don't make things complicated for your maker. So, well, thanks so much.
Sarah, you got to read the pattern all the way.
I know. I'm a terrible
read it all the way through. I mean, like same as when you're cooking. Don't even ask me how many times I haven't read the recipe all the way through and find out that it actually takes 7 hours and I didn't give myself 7 hours. Or that I need something I don't have. Come on, read it all the way through.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you, Erin, for being with us today. It is so much fun to talk about something that's a little bit outside of our wheelhouse to someone who knows what they're talking about. It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Can I tell you about one last thing that
Yeah.
I have a workbook called Plan Your Year of Designs that I've been finding that tech editors have been enjoying talking to their designers about, because I recently had one person who suggested it to one of her designers, and her designer had laid out her entire year of designs and then scheduled it all with her. And the benefit with this way, like, again, the way that I think about things, and the way, like, I think of it as, like a bento box, like a kid's lunchbox. I always think about balance. So when I plan my year of designs, I plan them in usually an hour. Like, I'll do my basic bones of my year in an hour, and I'll think about, like, where it goes in the year, what's done well the previous year, or, like, even before I did that, every year it gets better. But just how it all fits together. Do I have balance in my year? Do I have balance between, like, a big project and a small project? And, like, how does it all lay out? And so I walk you through everything that I think about. There's a workbook for it. And there's a video lesson that goes along with it. And so the people who have taken that have found it really helpful. And I think that, tech editors would benefit from it, because their designers then would be able to know what was coming up, know what they were designing. They would be able to book time with the tech editors.
Your tech editor will love you.
Thank you for telling us about that. We definitely have people in our audience who struggle to plan out their designs. It's one more thing to have tools and guidance for, to make it be more successful for you. It's great.
Absolutely. So if you all are interested in working with Erin, she is at Erin Designs everywhere, and her links are in the chat, and she is awesome. Thank you, Erin, for being here. It was so much fun talking to you about all your skills and your superpower.
Thank you. It was so awesome to be here, because this is something I'm super passionate about, and I'm so happy to be able to talk to you guys as well as, all of the people here. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you. See you soon.
Bye, Erin. Thank you. Oh, that was awesome.
Okay, I'll flip it, because you like.
Yeah, I can't be on the left.
You have to.
Did you see my sweatshirt?
Yes.
So a designer friend sent it to me. Is it like the ultimate tech editor sweatshirt?
Everything calls for a spreadsheet this week for me. I love it.
That cracked me up.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. We have some special announcements to make today. Go ahead, Christina.
Well, our most exciting announcement is that we have signed a contract with Story Publishing. Woo! So we have sort of two parts to submit, and one of them we sent in Friday, and we have to get the next part in by this Friday. So and of course have other things going on too, so we're going to be working like dogs.
We're super excited.
It's very exciting. We toasted with champagne over on our Patreon, so that was very fun.
And the best part about this is we've got, I think it's a little bit less than 18 months until our book is released. So if you are interested in following our progress on our book and our whole process, please join us on Patreon. Our Patreon is kind of a fun place. We have a Discord server where we can talk, and we do knit nights twice a month, where you guys can join us and knit with us for an hour. We do one at lunchtime Eastern time and one in the evening Eastern time. So anybody anywhere can join us. And we just love connecting with you guys. You can ask us questions whenever you want.
You can ask us questions whenever you want. And we have a knit night coming up Thursday, which is a lot of fun. We've done a few so far, and they are definitely more relaxed and laid back, and we do solve problems and answer questions, but we also get a little off the cuff. So
yes, so please feel free to join us, and we'd like to thank our current patrons for making this broadcast possible. It allows us to pay our guests, and it also allows us to pay our bills. And it makes everything work smoothly for us. And we're super grateful to all the patrons who are currently part of our network, is what we call it.
Yep, our network.
So next month, we will, did we do that yet? Did you make a banner?
I did. I'll do it right now. You talk.
Okay, so next month we will be coming back here, live broadcast on April 18th at noon. We'll have a special guest, and we would love for you to join us. So subscribe here and sign up for our newsletter. If you subscribe here, you'll get a notification. If you sign up for our newsletter, then we send you a reminder the Friday before with all the details and the replay for this episode. And we also send you a 15-minute reminder in the newsletter. So right. April 18th at noon, we'll see you here.
And the cool thing about YouTube is that we send out the link to the broadcast on Friday, and you can go and put your comment on the live stream before we even go live. So your comment, if you have questions ahead of time, can already be there if you want. And you can get reminders for when the show's going to be. So it's pretty cool.
Exactly. So we'll see you next month. Thank you for being here today to talk about pattern readability and layout. We're super excited to see what's coming up next month. So have a great time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.